In M&A, restructuring, and special situations, both the context and the judgment matters. Understanding management credibility, which AI can't really do. Understanding stakeholder interests and dynamics, operational realities, and whether financial results truly reflect business performance still require professional judgment.
Welcome to yet another episode of Investment Banking Decoded, where we are connecting with the experienced bankers from the North American region. So today we are delighted to welcome Mr. Jim Davidson. He is a founder and managing director of Avant Advisory Group. Jim brings decades of experience advising middle market business on M&A, strategic transactions, and corporate finance. We are excited to hear about his journey, his perspective on today's M&A landscape, and what's ahead for the industry. Welcome to the show, Jim. Thanks a lot for joining with us.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
So to start with, I would like to understand your background and some key milestones in your professional journey so far for our viewers.
Of course. Well, my career has been really a combination of M&A advisory, financial and operational leadership, financial restructuring, and operational turnarounds for distressed companies. I spent my early career at PricewaterhouseCoopers, where I spent 10 years working across accounting, including forensic accounting, auditing, M&A transaction advisory, turnaround and restructuring consulting. That gave me a terrific exposure to a wide range of industries, businesses, and situations very early in my career. From there, I moved into private industry and had the opportunity to serve over the next several years in a variety of executive leadership roles, including as CEO, CFO, COO, CRO, and other executive positions. That senior management experience was invaluable to me because it changed the way I look at businesses and transactions. In transitioning from the previous advisory role at PwC to the actual hands-on decision maker and person accountable for those decisions, I learned those roles are often very different. And they're two different worlds of both challenges and perspectives. Then 30 years ago, I founded Avant Advisory Group and its predecessor firms. Since then, we've advised middle market companies, private equity firms, family offices, banks, and alternative lenders, law firms, and other professionals and stakeholders on mergers and acquisitions, distressed company, operational turnarounds and financial restructurings, forensic, fraud, and corporate investigations. We've done countless expert consulting and testifying expert witness engagements. One thing that's been consistent throughout my career is that I've always been drawn to complex situations, whether it's helping prepare a company for sale, evaluating an acquisition, restructuring a distressed company. I really enjoy helping clients navigate that uncertainty, obtain answers, and create value. That's really been the common thread across everything I've done. Our logo itself includes the word securing value. That's what I love to do.
That's great. You are having a long career. Like you have been a businessman, you have been a CXO, now you are an advisor for last many years. So my next question would be that I'm sure that you have done hundreds of transactions, M&A transactions you and Edwin have done. So is there a particular transaction which is very memorable to you and any particular reasons for that?
Yeah, there's lots, but let me just give you one. If we have time, I'll give you two.
Yes.
There was one that was done during COVID, an impossible situation, but it happened. It was for a small company that wanted to buy a very large airline out of bankruptcy. That was right in the heart of COVID. As a matter of fact, within the time of the shutdown right here in the US, that 200 million plus revenue airlines based in Alaska filed bankruptcy. And the economy was frozen, was lots of uncertainty with what was happening. The airline industry had been shut down. Their passengers were not flying. Alaska itself had some challenges. Everything was impossible for that acquisition to happen, including most probably and most importantly, the capital markets were frozen. Nobody was willing to invest or loan in that particular environment. Yet, I told this small, relatively new upstart company that it could happen, but only because if God was involved. This was a faith-based company, as mine is, as Avant Advisory Group is, and we were going to put all of our faith and trust in God to make it happen. Well, it took about less than 6 months, but that transaction occurred, and it was an amazing success. Whereas some of the largest competitors out there were sidelined. They for whatever reason, they did not get that deal, but our client made that deal happen. And it's one that I'm extremely proud of. And it was because we gave our faith and trust in the Lord, and He made it happen. That is one. I'll give you another one if we have time. Another quick.
Yes, definitely. We would love to hear it.
Okay, there was another client that we were engaged in probably right before COVID, I would say in late 2019. And we were engaged to help them do lots of acquisitions. They wanted to grow and grow not only organically, but through acquisition. And in doing so, they needed an advisor to advise them professionally on what sequence to do, what things needed to do, what order, and what direction to go. And they had 4 or 5 different companies that they were looking at acquiring themselves before hopefully being sold in a few years down the road, call it 5, 6 years down the road. We looked at all of those companies, and none of them were a match. But we also did some internal analysis of that company, that call it at that time about a $45-50 million revenue company. We started to analyze the company's financials and found that we needed to clean it up financially. We did. There was lots on the balance sheet that needed cleanup. By the time we did that, it tripped a covenant. Those correctly done adjustments resulted in a negative EBITDA, substantial swing from what they thought was positive to negative EBITDA. That triggered a potentially being placed into special assets by the bank. But because of the bank trusting what were our capabilities in not only M&A, but most importantly in that case in forensics and turnaround and restructuring, they said, we won't touch you. We will keep you out of special assets. In fact, we'll support where you're going. But as long as you have Avant Advisory Group, they're continuing to advise you. That turned out to be, again, another faith-based company called Reborn Cabinets, Reborn Solutions, another Christian company. And we were amazingly successful with them, together. Again, with the Lord's intercession in leading us. 3 years later, we sold that company for far beyond what they expected that it would be sold for. It was an amazing success. And so that one, we had to deal with financial issues, operational issues, strategic issues. We had to cut the cost of the company to make it survive. We had to refocus the direction on where the value was. We secured value in that company, and it proved out by an ultimate sale that was far above $100 million in transaction value. Another story success that I'm proud of.
Great. That's so rewarding experience you are having. So I spoke to a banker, and he told that the most important thing he loved about investment banking is that he can change people's lives. Like there are people who are looking to sell companies, and you can come and help them. Like how you mentioned, you changed everything so that they can have a successful transaction. That's great to hear.
Absolutely.
So I would like to understand, which are the top sectors you are focusing, and what are your focus area for the remaining of 2026, and how do you see the market evolving in the M&A space?
Well, one major area is helping clients prepare for transactions in a market that's becoming much more competitive and really being disrupted by AI itself. It's created a lot of increased uncertainty, and buyers are more selective, more uncertain, and doing a lot more diligence. In fact, Buyers, investors, and lenders are conducting much deeper diligence, including using AI, more than we've seen in any prior cycles. So preparation and transparency are increasingly important, not to mention speed. Another focus, not M&A in this case, another area of our focus is distressed and special situations. Well, there are certainly strong companies performing well. We're also seeing business dealing with margin pressure, leverage challenges because of they got too much debt on their balance sheet in earlier periods, and now that debt is becoming due and difficult from a cash flow standpoint to service that debt. But just changing consumer behavior and industry disruption, much of it because of AI, much of it is attributable to AI, but there's a lot of factors impacting companies that are driving them into distress, either from an operational standpoint, and or a financial standpoint where they've got too much leverage on the balance sheet. Those situations are creating both challenges and opportunities. We're also spending a lot of time helping companies improve performance and valuation well before a transaction occurs. Owners sometimes focus exclusively on the sale process, but often the greatest value creation comes from improving the operations themselves, the financial reporting, such as the company I mentioned earlier as an example, and improving governance, corporate governance, mitigating risk, and driving profitability well before even going to the market. Finally, I think we're entering a period where experience matters. The environment is more complex, capital is more disciplined, discerning, and stakeholders themselves are demanding better information and quicker. Companies that are well prepared and can execute effectively will be in a much stronger position, and we're helping them do that.
Yes. So again, like you mentioned about AI. So my next question was actually related to that. So I want to understand, like, how are you using AI in your daily workflow at Avant Advisory Group, and like how is it impacting your workflow?
Yep, that's a big issue that we're dealing with right now. We're using AI as a tool to improve efficiency and enhance our analysis, but not as a substitute for judgment. That's really important. There's a tendency for all of us, me and our team, to rely on the output of that AI tool and the analysis that it generates, but it could be a huge mistake. We've seen some errors, some problems that we could have been misled had we not been more careful in analyzing the results of that. A lot of our work involves reviewing large volumes of information, financial data, contracts, diligence materials, operational information, investigative documents, and lots of other records. AI can help us to organize the information, and it really does. It identifies patterns, surfaces issues, accelerates certain aspects of research and analysis. We're also using it. It's helping us with things like market research, transaction preparation, document review, and summarizing large amounts of data more efficiently. But that said, I don't think AI replaces experience. I kind of alluded to that earlier. In M&A, restructuring, and special situations, both the context and the judgment matters. Understanding management credibility, which AI can't really do. Understanding stakeholder interests and dynamics, operational realities, and whether financial results truly reflect business performance, still require professional judgment. The way I look at it, AI is making good professionals more productive. It is. It allows us to spend time less on administrative tasks and more time focusing on critical thinking, problem solving, and advising clients. That's where I see how AI fits, at least in the way we at Avant Advisory are using it.
Definitely, like that's a great piece of information you have shared with us. So I would like to understand, like, when you are doing an M&A transaction, what do you expect would be the complex situations in it? Like, what kind of roadblocks you will be expecting, and how are you evading it? Like, how are you preparing for that?
How are
I
we
don't
doing?
want you to. I don't want you to spell out the secret sauce, but a generic overview of how are you prepare, how usually you prepare for an M&A transaction.
Most importantly is management. We do thorough assessment of management. The seller, management, their capabilities, their credibility, their trustworthiness, their candor, transparency, those are critical items. We need to know them because a potential buyer is going to be looking for that constantly. They're going to be scrutinizing, analyzing, questioning the capability, the credibility of the management team. And we need to be associated only with management sellers that are honest, transparent, candid, truthful. That's really important. That's number one. Number two, we want to make sure that the numbers that are being presented are accurate. We do sell-side quality of earnings engagements to ensure that those numbers are appropriate. They're in accordance with GAAP. The pro forma adjustments, the strategic adjustments are appropriately done. In other words, we're helping to prepare the seller of that company for the diligence that the buyer's diligence team will do. That way we know we're able to anticipate any issues that are going to arise before they do arise. We can remediate any problem areas so that they don't even come up in the buyer's diligence. And if we can't remediate them, we're ready to respond to the buyer's team, diligence team, the buyer himself. We're able to respond in an intelligent way, sort of rehearsed as to how best to present it in an honest, transparent, and candid way. So we want to understand the operations of the company, the financials of the company. We want to be able to answer everything in a professional way for the potential buyer's team. We're well before that transaction actually starts. We are self-analyzing, preparing for that engagement, preparing the company for the ultimate sale, and to drive that value, mitigate risk well before we even present the company for sale, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Thanks for sharing the behind the scenes perspective, which usually we won't be knowing. Like we only know like when the transaction is happening, okay, this transaction happened. The behind the scene, the bankers are putting a lot of effort, which I came to know after talking to so many bankers, the kind of effort you are pushing into that one deal. So thanks a lot for sharing that. So my last question for the day would be like, what is the top piece of advice you want to give to someone who is newly stepping into the investment banking world?
Okay. I would focus on developing a broad business foundation before becoming overly specialized, whether it's mergers and acquisition or anything else. Learn how businesses actually operate across as many industries as possible. Understand accounting, finance, operations, strategy, and how management teams make decisions. Spend time understanding what drives profitability, cash flow, and value creation. I would also encourage young professionals, people starting out early in their career, to seek out difficult situations rather than avoid them. Some of the best lessons I've learned came from distressed companies, challenging transactions, restructurings, investigations, fraud, forensics, corporate investigations, and situations where things didn't go according to plan. Another piece of advice is to listen more than you talk. Every deal has experienced operators, investors, lenders, attorneys, and advisors. They're all involved, and they're capable, experienced people. If young professional, if you're paying attention, you'll learn something from every engagement. Finally, remember that technical skills get you in the room, but trust, integrity, and credibility are what build long-term careers. People want to work with advisors who are not only competent, reliable, and could solve difficult problems, but they've got to be trustworthy. If you build that reputation over time, the opportunities will tend to follow, and you will have a successful career.
That's great piece of advice, Jim. So with that, we have done with the podcast for today. So I would like to thank you for taking your time to share your experience and insights with all of us today, all the viewers today. We truly appreciate the conversation and wish you and the Avant Advisory Group team continued success. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.